Okay, everybody, wow, thank you for coming and putting up with me. I'm probably going to be a little stressed out. I put this slideshow together while I'm in an 11-month accelerated nursing program and trying to juggle a whole bunch of things, including putting this little benefit together. Okay, are we good? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, let's see if we can change here. Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you all for coming out. I haven't rehearsed this slideshow at all. So if when I bumble, just be a little patient with me. I have literally been studying pathophysiology all day and trying to put this slideshow together. So pretty busy, but I'm really psyched to be here. Also, you know, I've been coming to meetings for a long time at the MCA, and I've been utilizing the MCA huts for a long time. To be honest, there's been many years where I have not been a member. So today I went and I just got a year-long membership, auto-renew, $30. And I know that I've definitely used the huts a lot. I've taken lots of wonderful morning poops in the outhouses and then never paid a cent to have them flown out, and that is by far the most expensive operating budget of the hut and the MCA, as far as I'm aware. So one of the things I wanted to do tonight was make this event kind of a little bit of a benefit for the huts, and I'm also the American Alpine Club Alaska section chair, so you know, I kind of help deal with the Snowbird hut as well. And then the Seth Holden hut is a favorite hut of mine, and he was my partner, and we talked about him tonight. He passed away in a plane crash in 2010. So it's my hope tonight that we can make this somewhat of a benefit for both of the huts, and really all of the huts in general. But so if at the end of the night you guys feel like you want to donate some money, we're going to put up a little bit of a link somewhere, and then we're going to have a bit of a silent auction in the back. So for that time, we'll just tell some lies. And I will say that, so first of all, tonight I'm going to be talking about two big climbs that I did this year that have been just in my mind for a long, long time, probably since 2005, 2006. The first one is Golgotha, which is located in the Revelation Mountains of Alaska, at the very southwestern tip of the Alaska Range. That's the one on the left in black, and we made a first ascent on it this year, and I made the first ascent of it in 2012 with my buddy Ben Trocki, and then this year I made it with, finally completed kind of one of my dream routes with my partner Andres Marin. And then the second story I'm going to tell about is of Mount Hunter. It's the 14,573-foot peak in the Alaska Range, often called Beguya, meaning the daughter, I believe, in the Alaska Range. So if you ever look at Denali, it's the little mountain of the skyline of the Alaska Range, but I assure you it is not so little when you are standing underneath it. So I do want to also say that I'm going to try and talk clean tonight, but I'm going to share kind of a couple pretty heavy stories with videos, and be aware, there is a lot of fucking swearing in this video. Other than that, I'm not going to swear at all tonight if I can help it, so kiddos, cover your ears, and I'm going to try and tell the best story I can, and just let the photos and the video tell as much of the story as I can, so I don't have to mess it up. So, Golgotha, wow, this peak inspired me since I was so young, and I was not even a climber at all. I didn't even know how to ice climb, really. But I read a bunch of books by David Roberts, and as I kind of got into the mountaineering aspect more of climbing in Alaska, I started just always read these stories about people that would climb first ascents back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and Fred Beckey and everyone came to mind, and it just seemed to me when it was my time that first ascents weren't really possible anymore. Not really, like most everything was pretty well climbed out. But then through a bunch of reading of David Roberts' books, I found out about this place called the Revelation Mountains, and it's at the very southern tip of the Alaska Range. It's only about 165 miles from here, but in little plane hours, it's a long ways away and a lot of money. So it was really hard to kind of even find out any information about this place because only about 10 teams had been there from 1968 until 2008 when I made my first trip there. And in the interim, I have now made, I think, 12 expeditions to the Alaska Range, or to the Revelation Mountains specifically, trying to climb unclimbed peaks. So I made my first bunch of trips there in 2008, 2009, 2010 with my mentor and friend, Seth Holden. And I met him in university, the outdoor club. And at this point in time, like I said, I was not much of a climber at all. I didn't know anything about the outdoors, really. In fact, they gave me the least prepared award. I think it says again, so I got it a couple times. On my first year in Alaska, and you know, it took a while, but I kind of started to learn, and I went out ice climbing and rock climbing, and that was so foreign to me. I moved up from Seattle, and I was not a climber at all. Like I had jeans on my first couple trips I'd go on. I think I hiked crevasse in jeans, and like that was, wow, I'm really out there, you know. But little by little, I kind of started to do more climbing and got into this alpinism thing, and totally, you know, not good my first many trips. But I found this range, and my first trips in the Alaska Range, I invited this guy Seth Holden, who at the time was like older than me, and he climbed Denali and been in Chamonix and climbed El Cap, and to me that was like I was in the presence of some demigod, you know. But I just really looked up to him, and I invited him on these trips, and we got funded by the American Alpine Club to go do these early exploratory trips. I mean, we got $500, $600, $700, and that was so much money to get, you know, help pay for like a quarter of our trip in there, because back then it was really expensive, and it was like $900 a person, which when you make maybe $10,000 a year is a lot of money when you're a little college kid. But we did a bunch of trips together, and not only did we really kind of become a good partner team, but I learned a lot from him, and he became one of my very good friends. And as we did these multiple trips in the Alaska Range, especially in the Revelations, with success and failure, we got up on these peaks. And this peak over here, Mausolus, this was really the one that was our early obsessive objective, and it was unclimbed at the time. But when we got up on top of another peak, because it would take even years just to figure out how to get there from the glacier, you know, with our caution and inexperience, and in all reality, we never would have gotten up that thing anyway at that point in time. It was just so big. But on these other peaks, this one being the ice pyramid, we looked out in the Revelations, and we just saw this complete panorama of unclimbed peaks as far as we could see, and we were really inspired. So in 2008, we just mapped out all of these objectives we were going to do. Like this year, we're going to do Ice Pyramid. Next year, we're going to come back and do Mausolus, and then the Angel. But the one that we were really inspired by was Golgotha, because as you saw in the picture a couple of slides ago, it was this big black pyramid. So Seth and I did a bunch of trips in there, and it was just this amazing playground. And it wasn't like looking at peaks and going, oh, well, what's the one line on there that hasn't been climbed? It's like, what's the one peak in this range that has been climbed that we can see? So we just had complete autonomy to go wherever we wanted and do whatever we wanted to do. This is Hesperus, the tallest peak, and every other thing you see here has never even been touched, still to this day. We walked out our first bunch of trips, 25 miles to a lodge. It was a really nice way to get to kind of transition out of the mountains. But Seth tragically died in a plane crash in 2010, and he was the first person that I'd ever really lost as a climbing partner or a friend. And you know, it obviously was incredibly difficult, and we had this whole entire future planned out in the Revelation Mountains. And it took me a long time to kind of figure out that if I wanted to go back without him. And ultimately I did, and I went with my friend Scotty in 2010, and we stood on top of this peak that we had really wanted to climb, Mount Mausolus, which to me, like even 12 or 13 years later, this is still one of the best climbs I've ever done. So this is looking at the main spine of the Revelations, with the tallest peak there being Hesperus, and Apocalypse Peak, South Buttress, the Angel, and Golgotha. So for years we would just stare at this pyramid, this black pyramid of Golgotha, and just go, oh my gosh, like even after we do all these other things, that's going to be the toughest one. But we knew we wanted to do it. So in 2012, I went back with my partner, Ben Trocki. He's a great friend of mine, and we landed on the Revelation Glacier to go try Golgotha. And at this point, the whole peak was unclimbed, but we had picked out this line on the face. Oops. This line on the face, this super direct line. I'll show you the line again here. It ended up being, we didn't really have the weather for it. We tried it, but it was just really too big. But we ended up making the first ascent of the peak after we bailed from this really difficult central line, which at no point on the lower 1,500 feet of the face is ever wider than about 6 feet wide. So it's really, really intimidating. But we ended up making the first ascent of the mountain via a much easier couloir, which you can kind of see over there, and then it winds up to the southeast face. And the pictures are a little bit out of order, but you're going to notice a quick trend here in these photos and stories of our trips in the range. Our base camps just get really messed up when we leave them alone. And sometimes we're not even gone, but they just get destroyed, and sometimes they blow away. Okay? It happens a lot. So here we came back from our first ascent of Golgotha Peak, and found out that winds had just completely wrecked our tent, broken poles, and our kitchen was completely buried, everything. Even our shovels were in the kitchen, so we could dig out with a pot. We ended up waiting in there for 2 weeks of bad weather until we could get picked up. But we ended up, we did get up to the top, so that's looking from the summit on the first ascent of Golgotha. But we tried this central line right here. So this is the line that has been my obsession for 15 years. It goes right up. You see that little teeny tiny line of ice? It is, right here is maybe about as wide as the room, for perspective. Maybe a little wider. But so this was always the dream line. Seth and I always talked about how if you dropped a tennis ball off the top, it would fall right down there.
Is that the south aspect, Clint?
This is the east face of Golgotha. So, interesting side note, I became kind of friends with David Roberts. He was a prolific writer and photographer and climber in Alaska. He passed away a couple of years ago, but I had the great fortune of calling him a friend for the last 10 or 12 years of his life, and he was a major inspiration to me. And when we started ticking off these peaks, which he'd written about extensively, it was his words that had inspired me. And then he would write something else about it, like, well, actually Mausolus isn't the hardest one. I think it's Golgotha. So he was like in magazine prints goading me on. But he told me once that he said, when we walked by Mausolus or Golgotha in when we walked by Golgotha in 1967, we considered it a mountain for the next generation. Or the next. So we're somewhere in between that. But those words always stuck with me because we knew that it was going to be very, very challenging. So this was when Ben and I first attempted it, kind of looking at the lower route here, we just had so much snow. And this is going to be another theme, is really steep vertical snow. Like, how can snow be that steep? But it can be, and it's really hard to climb and even harder to protect. So this was our first attempt, which ended not very far in. My buddy Ben had his camera on like cyan or something, so we pretty much bailed after that, and then that was when we made the first ascent via a much easier route, a couloir, and made it to the top. But
What year?
go ahead.
What year?
That was 2012. And also, you guys can, please, just, if you have questions, float them out. That's awesome. But for years, I felt like, you know, I had this ideal of I wanted to climb that central line, and I didn't really care about getting to the top of the mountain. It was more how I got to the top, and I wanted to climb that line. It really like stuck in my craw, and I felt like I wanted to go back and do the line that Seth and I talked about. It was kind of our dream, and I recruited my friend Andres Marin in 2016, and in an unbelievable display of flying by my two friends who are both pilots in little Super Cubs, we landed at the base of the mountain, and I'll show you how narrow this cirque is, but I guarantee you we are the only people that will ever land there. It is so tiny. And we thought, awesome, this is great. We're at the base of the mountain. We don't have to hump loads over this pass anymore. Because we've been in that basin before, but we've always approached from a farther camp. So now we're right at the base, spitting distance from it. And we didn't realize how much danger we were actually in. So one morning we awoke to, it had gone from 40 below to about 25 or 30 above at 5,000 feet overnight. It was exceedingly cold to exceedingly warm, and it had snowed 2 feet overnight. And it was a complete whiteout. And we realized that we were in trouble. And we're looking around at walls taller than the glacier is wide. And we're basically in the middle of this glacier. And there is nowhere for us to go. And we start hearing avalanches. And we're trying to figure out what to do. I had been filming a time lapse, and this was kind of right during the height of my obsession with photography. So I was just filming everything. I had my camera on all the time. And basically we heard this crack, and we ran out of base camp through 3 feet of snow, tumbling in the snow, just moving away from whatever sound it was. And it was emanating, and it was powerful, and it was terrifying. And as I got about 50 feet out of base camp, I got knocked over by a blast of wind, and then I began to get buried by the debris of the avalanche. And I thought I was going to die. I knew I was going to die. And I just swam and kicked, and I just knew that I was powerless against this thing. And then it just stopped. And I kind of like couldn't believe it, and I was able to kick free, and I just instinctively pressed the record button, and I'm going to show you about 7 minutes of video here. Forgive me, there's a lot of swearing, but I wasn't thinking about being PG during this one. So this is all literally 2 seconds after I stood up.
Is our tent gone?
What's up?
Is our tent? Okay, everything got fucking leveled, dude. We just got hit by an avalanche in camp. All right, dude. We need to fucking move down. Like, what do you think? Where can we go? God fucking damn it. First, we need to find our in-reach. Shit. Oh, God. Oh, fuck.
I don't know, man. I mean, like... Yeah, you should film that, dude.
I'm filming it right now. We were able to run. We got hit by a powder blast. Okay, our kitchen just got ripped to shit. That's our kitchen. Our tent, don't step right here, that's our kitchen. We can like pick up our tent, fucking move like just as far away as we can get. I gotta find my gloves. My gloves got buried. Our tent might be fucking destroyed too. Yeah, dude. Holy shit. Yeah, our tent's fucking destroyed, dude. Poles, everything. Oh man, this is super fucked. I gotta find some gloves, and then we need to figure out what the fuck we're gonna do. I mean, everything's in the tent, but my fucking gloves got wiped out. If you start burying some kitchen essentials, we can get the tent dug out too. And then just keep a super watchful eye, and let's get the fuck like 500 feet that way.
We almost have everything moved, but this is what happened. It's been a couple hours. We've moved everything, but I had just gone outside of the kitchen tent to do a time lapse, and I looked up and heard this noise and this complete whiteness, and our whole fucking tent got hit by an avalanche and carried about 40 feet. And we ran. I got hit by the tailings of the debris pile. And we were both totally on top, but our camp was totally covered. It's just completely white out. We had like 2.5 feet of snow here, probably in the last 36 hours, and it's really wet and heavy. Now we moved everything farther down the valley. We found the whiskey. 1,000 feet or so to a safe knoll or safer, we can't really tell. So there's avalanches coming down the entire I don't know how we're gonna get out of here. I think everything's pretty avalanche proof. Well, fucking obviously it's avalanchy, but if we can get safe, we have all of our survival gear to make it for a while, including the second tent. And whiskey. So, yeah. But it's just constant rumbling all the time. It's fucking huge, dude. Everything like that. This whiteout world just scares the fuck out of us. We don't know what it is. So, in all reality, the first thing we did was try and find all of our survival gear, and once we got a little composed, we made a plan. I took the inReach, he took the satellite phone. I took one stove, he took the other. We wore a backpack at all times. We had survival gear, food, fuel, water, everything we could on each man at all times as we dug out our camp and tried to find a safer place to stay, of which there was not really any, all while these avalanches are coming down and we ran from a bunch of them. That's just one that I got on the bill. But we started, I started recording these videos in all reality because I started realizing that we're probably not going to make it through this, and I want someone to know what happened. I thought about my dad and other people, and it just seemed very improbable that we were going to make it through the night. So, just like digging out our kitchen, for example, 100 feet deep in snow. So we ended up kind of finding a space behind a rock, and we were able to repair our tent enough to where we could use it. In all reality, we found everything over the next couple of days. By probing over the pile, I lost one ski pole and we lost some food, but we found everything. But we ended up being there for a week. We would stomp a runway as the weather would improve, and then it would be covered by another foot of snow. But this first night was really the worst. It was the most terrifying experience of my life by far. And this video to me is like one of the more haunting ones because I can hear a fear in my voice that I don't normally have. Because now it's dark, it's getting dark.
Just a constant, terrifying roar of avalanches here. Still snowing really, really hard at about 7:30, and behind this rock, you can't really see it, but we have kind of everything dug out, and just feeling pretty safe, but it's really, really snowy. I don't even know. I mean, 3 feet of snow is really conservative, probably more. We moved from way up there, not that it matters, all that there is to see is white. We have our tent, which is really ripped up, but we have it kind of stabilized, and we have a kind of super emergency snow cave dug out. Travel down out of this super fucking narrow little cirque is impossible, and travel up the 1,000-foot pass to the Revelation Glacier is also impossible. So at this point, it's stay put and just kind of try and dig out. We're both really wet, and even as I'm holding this, I'm kind of starting to shiver almost uncontrollably, but I think we have enough warm clothes to be able to stay relatively okay. More than anything, I think we're just freaked out, and I think tonight's going to be a really trying night for both of us. Just kind of digging, and we can't see what's going on. Every terrifying rumble we hear is going to be really questioning. And it's just constant. There's a super ripper coming down right now. Like we'll feel the blast from that. You know, I don't think it has any chance of really like delivering chunder towards us, but it's just kind of a emotionally super fucked up situation. I don't even know I've camped here before, but I've never had this much snow ever fall at one point in time. And I don't know, we can't land a fixed wing in here for a long fucking time. Now it's just kind of trying to make it through the night and hope that after that, when the forecast is predicted to get better, that at least it stops snowing. And I think tomorrow will be a lot better, but you know, then we're worried about if the sun hits, what it's going to do, because this is all just kind of stress release, constant. But if we get like a slab release, it could be catastrophically bigger than anything we've seen. That's kind of our fear. Hoping, I don't know, I really don't know what we're hoping for at this point. Safety. We really don't want to have to push the SOS button, but at this point, I don't really know what else we're going to do.
So we ended up being in that situation for a week, and we would stomp a runway, and then it would get covered up. And we stomp another runway, and it would get covered up. And our pilot, who was taking off at Lake Hood, told us that he couldn't come and get us because he was the last plane on the lake, and the lake was melting out, and he had fixed skis on his plane. So he tried to come get us one last time, and he turned around. And at that point in time, we had no option but to call the Pararescue 212. And we were just about to call them on a clear day. And he texted us and he goes, "I found the hole, I'll be there in 30 minutes. And he picked us up. And I can't give Connor McManaman enough credit because he picked us up out of this surf that was so tiny. If I had video, when he took off with me, I went first with him. He took off just before it dropped off into an ice fall. I didn't think he was going to make it. I didn't think we were going to make it. And then he had to come back and pick up Andres and then pick up 2 loads of our gear. So I only made the flight once, he made it 4 times. So we wanted to come back, but we decided we probably weren't going to camp there anymore. So we camped on the big Revelation Glacier, which is super awesome. It's just wide, there's no problem at all. You can, you can land the plane sideways in there if you want to. And we made another trip in 2017, now with beautiful weather, down into the little pass, or the little pocket glacier, that my friend Andres had come to call the Misfit Glacier. Misfit from the band, the Misfits. He actually gave me this shirt. So, we brought along our friend Leon, and we learned a lot. Now we came back with a new perspective. We were going to camp in there for a night or 2, but we could escape. We left fixed roads down the gully so we could get out if we needed to, and we were going to go fast and light, climb the mountain in a day. And we were doing really well. We actually got really high up on the route. And then Leon broke a crampon about halfway up the route, and we had no choice but to come down. We couldn't repair it. So we sat there in camp just super bummed out and had no choice but to basically walk back up all the way back to camp. We were going to get another pair of crampons for him and then come right back up, finish the route. And then, of course, the weather was bad for 2 more weeks. And what else happened? Our base camp tent got destroyed. So we had to basically try and huddle in this little tiny ripped up tent for 2 more weeks. So 2018, Andres and I went back again. The weather was terrible. We did some climbing, but it was very obvious right away that Golgotha was off the table. We realized after all these years now that what we needed for Golgotha was a year with no snow, very little snow. Any snow was going to plaster that thing in ice and make it too hard to climb in the overhanging snow. So we finally went back and went back in 2019, we ended up going to the Himalaya instead, but we were always talking about Golgotha. And then COVID hit, and then life got in the way in 2021. But in 2022, it was like, all right, we got to go back one more time. So now we've been there 4 times, and I've been there 5 for Golgotha, and I've been dreaming of it for, 14 years. But we had the route pretty well dialed. We learned a lot about it. We just needed some damn luck. So Andres is one of my oldest friends. I've known him since 2005. We met climbing on Mount Rainier, guiding together. And when I met him, he just barely spoke any English. He moved from Colombia, and I remember he had one of those brand new little iPod shuffles, and he still didn't even know like all the words of English. And he'd go, "I just got a new iPod. It has 5 gigabytes of music." And we thought that was so funny, so we always like tease him about everything. But his accent is like one of the most awesome things about him, and even in like the darkest of situations, he can bring me up just by his funny way of saying things. But he now speaks pretty much better English than I do. So we went back to Golgotha here in March of 2022, and man, it was like we finally had paid our dues, and the weather was just awesome. So we knew what to do. We had originally in 2017 tried to climb the route in a day, and we decided that, you know what, we're not coming back a 5th time. We're just going to do this dang thing. So we brought enough gear to have 1 or 2 bivvies if we needed, but we were still relatively light. we climb with, you'll see we have 3 ropes there. So on anything that was difficult, the leader or the second did not climb with the pack. So we hauled the pack almost every pitch, especially once we got a little higher. But the thing about Golgotha is that the snow is weird, the ice is weird, and the rock is really, really compact. So you have all these nice cams and pitons and stuff, and you just can't find anywhere because you're in the middle of the mountain and the rock is so compact. So you lead this whole pitch with not much pro, and you look above you and the climbing is really hard, and you get like a triple equalized snow. Occasionally a piton, but these like weird little vertical steps of snow take forever because they're incredibly unconsolidated.
Navy V-threads equalized. Best we could get.
We would just search in vain on the wall looking for anything, any little seam that we could put a piton in, and you would find them, but there was many times where you had some terrible anchor with like your pick in the snow or something. It's funny because on these photos you're like, oh, that's only like 10 or 15 feet, but God, it would take forever because it wasn't just like sticking it in there. It was delicate balance. But we had, with our prior knowledge in 2017, as we were climbing in a day, Andres had led up and he had kicked through this like shield of snow and ice and found this giant hole, this cave. And it was really hard to climb by it that year. But we had to keep going, but we remembered that cave, and it was like our salvation. Like, we're gonna go into that cave. So instead of trying to like just keep climbing higher on this push here, from base camp, we left, went all the way over the pass, dropped into the Misfit Glacier, and then we knew that on this first day, the cave was going to be our stopping point because it's nicer than like half the apartments I've lived in. I'm not even joking.
Dude, it is huge in here.
This might look like a nightmare, but to me, like for an alpine climber, for a ditty, this is like absolutely the best, most incredible spot you're ever gonna get on a mountain. I've had so many really crappy nights, like sleeping on a knob tied in with my feet tied in. To be able to take your harness off and your crampons off and sleep in a tent was incredible.
We are a good ways up Golgotha. We just found this sick cave.
Behold! Holy crap.
You're like good ways out there.
Everybody.
Way up the glacier.
Thing's bigger than most New York apartments, man.
I find that it really helps to keep brevity in these stressful situations. And even if you don't really mean it, to try and be funny and like laugh with somebody can really take the edge off.
Oh my God, it's like stars.
Yeah.
But we had to leave in the morning, we had to go. So, watching Andres climb out of view, I was left in the cave for a good 45 minutes or so, and just watching the rope slowly go up. And, you know, when it would not move for 5 or 10 minutes, I'd go, darn it, is he getting turned around by something? Because we just kind of expected to fail. But watch the snow here as he kicks. It's just really insecure. He kicks the rope. Professional climbers shouldn't be doing that. So we climbed on, and this was about the point we got in 2007. So looking up, this was about where Leon's crampon broke. And this year it was a little bit icier, so you know, this all looks like great ice, and you go, why didn't you go over there? Well, because it's actually not good at all. It's never good. But we knew the crux was up here, and it's this hanging dagger that goes over this chockstone, and in previous years there hadn't been any snow, and so this thing just hung out completely in space, and we knew that, man, we were either gonna get up it or we were gonna run away. And so we kind of right here were like, man, we might get another 150 feet higher and completely turn around and never come back to this thing. Interesting point, in 2019, some Slovenians had come and they asked for information about the revelations, and I told them all the secrets, but I said, please, I'll tell you anything you want about any route, please just don't go do this line on the east face of Golgotha. And the first thing they did was they tried this route, which really, really bummed me out. But they actually, luckily for me, they got horrible conditions, and they got to about right here and they bailed. So when we climbed up, we found all of our anchors and a couple of theirs. But above this little rollover, we were on entirely new terrain, and I knew that we were going to find out pretty quickly if we were going to get up the mountain or we were never coming back ever, ever again. But you can see how the mountain is just so incredibly narrow this entire way up this thing. And always in the back of my mind is the worry of what happens if a single rock comes down, or a little bit of spindrift, or something even bigger. There's just no way you won't get hit. So it's kind of a foolhardy error to be in there at any time, but that's why we needed these perfect conditions. And it hadn't snowed in 6 weeks. We weren't worried about random stuff falling. I'd actually bought a drone specifically so that I could fly over this route and see if it was in, so we didn't have to like waste a bunch of time. If it wasn't, we were able to fly right up to it from that little pass and get a pretty good view of that crux. So this is like the whole crux pitch here, and it's this kind of weird, like wowie-zowie looking dead vertical ice with dead vertical snow with a disconnected pillar to get over into a hanging dagger over the thing. So kind of a nightmare, right? But we had to confront it, and it fell to me. Andres is one of the best ice climbers I've ever met in my life. He has placed on World Cup podiums and stuff. But it was my pitch, and I sure as hell didn't want to have to bail and have him do it, so I did everything I could to get up the thing.
Who did?
I said muy bien. I was speaking crappy Spanish to him. So here we are, I'm leading out, I don't have a pack, and there's just nowhere for Andres to hide, and I know I'm gonna drop a bunch of stuff on him. And I end up, as I'm climbing this stuff, it's just inevitable, I bombard him with stuff, and I can just hear him grunting down there, and he's trying to hide under his pack, but I'm really worried that I'm gonna drop something on him and hurt him. And then we have a major, major ordeal. But looking, right up from the bottom of this thing, it's pretty terrifying. And I'm just thinking, how the hell am I gonna do this? I have, all the tiny aid gear, I've got little peckers and a RERP and copperheads and all the stuff if we have to, but we see that it actually is ice, so we can probably climb it in some way, but we just don't know. It ended up being quite scary. So as I'm climbing up there, I get to a vertical curtain of snow, and I end up seeing, I kick through something and I kick into a hole, and I go, what the heck is this? And it ended up being another cave. So we're under this chockstone, and it wasn't quite like the New York Palace of the last cave, but it was big enough that I was able to climb in there and be totally protected, and I was like, well, either I can do half the pitch and he can do the other half, but then I looked up and I can climb on the inside of this mountain through the crux on the inside and then burrow my way out and like cheat. So I was able to kind of cheat past a lot of it. But I ended up taking a fall, and I fell out into space, and we're hauling the backpacks, and Andres told me that when he pushed the backpacks out, that they swung out like 5 feet into space. That's how overhanging it was. So it was really, really hard. I did a lot of aid to kind of get through it, and then I throw my pick in some really thick snow and torque in a crack and hang off a tool and hang off some little tiny nut and bang a piton in. But eventually I got over it, and we pulled over into the kind of the wider part, that little hourglass part of the mountain. And we were over what we knew was the crux, and we thought that ahead was going to be pretty, easier terrain by comparison. And we were a little bit wrong. I mean, it was easier, but it wasn't easy. But Andres just took off on a really long, like hours-long lead, and we simul-climbed a bunch of this terrain, kind of up to maybe water ice 4, right up through here, and covered a lot of terrain in an hour. It got really, we're getting quite high on the mountain. So Golgotha's 8940, 8,940 feet. We were probably now at about 8,200. So we're feeling like pretty good. And we ended up finding this spot, and I wanted to keep going, and Andres just said, executive decision, we are camping here. And it was this kind of spot we were able to kick in. I was like, no, I'm not gonna argue. I wanted to sleep anyway. So we set up the tent, and then I was like kind of cold, and I wanted to get some long underwear on, and so I threw everything in the tent, and I was just about to take my harness off and put on some long underwear, and I was like, I should not do that. And then I slid onto my pad, and half of the tent wasn't supported by the ledge, and I fell off the ledge in the tent and tumbled down the mountain with my 12-foot tether, and Andres is like screaming as I fall, and came to a stop, and I poked my head out of the tent with everything in the tent, and I'm more pissed than scared. He's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I ripped the tent. So again, now we have another ripped tent. So then, I kept my harness on, thank God, and we both realized it was a pretty close call, but what can you do? And we made the ledge a little bit bigger, and we tensioned up the tether overnight, so we were a little tighter. But this was the next morning.
This is our second BB. Put a little ledge. Early morning. Clint, how you doing?
Feeling it.
Yeah.
Psyched but tired.
Yeah.
Gotta get up to get down.
Gotta get up to get down.
Right.
So just leading off, and we still kind of expected to get turned around by any little thing. But we were still sharing a lot of laughs and good spirits, and pretty much at this point, we're like, we are not getting shut down by anything. We still have food and fuel, so we were going. And it was just awesome, because Andres had been coming here for years with me, and we hadn't actually stood on top of a single peak together. So we just kept climbing these hard pitches. Like here, for example, I excavated all of this stuff, trying to go here, and then realizing it wasn't gonna go, and then do this big tension thing to get over here with A climbing and stuff. So really time-consuming, challenging climbing, like not show-stoppingly hard, but just kind of continually quite technical.
Awesome, dude.
It's about as hard as I want to be climbing in that. I'm going to put another ice screw in here.
Great.
Double them up just so I'm protected from any fucking ground fall.
Okay, sounds good. Nice work, man.
But yeah, the mountain was opening up, and Andres told this story that we pulled over onto the northeast ridge, and we're looking up at the summit plateau, and I mean, literally like right below this was a show-stopping little move, and he said there was a piton that I put in, and he wailed on that thing for like 5 minutes, he said, and he couldn't get it out. And he goes, dude, we left the piton on the highest rock on the route, so if anyone ever climbs it after us, they'll know that we got up here. There's no question. There's a piton up there. So he was way psyched on that. But climbing out and just looking out at the expanse of the Revelations behind, with the Four Horsemen and Apocalypse Peak, and just the whole main spine of the Revs with our base camp right about there. It was just really cool from the highest rock. I, climbed up there and established that last anchor, and then just said, "Take us to the top, man." And he did, and like the rope just kept going and going. Man, it's farther than I thought. But then the pace picked up, and I knew that he was on the summit, and then he was just pulling me out there, and it was this incredibly awesome feeling after 14 years and 8 or 6 with Andres trying this thing. And
Yeah. We're here! We're fucking here! Yeah! Yeah, dude! Yeah, 14 years a dream. And we're here at the summit of Golgotha. After climbing the east face, fuck, we tried this so many times. Andres and I, man. 6 years. Stories to tell. Unbelievable. Wow. Amazing, man. Yeah. Unreal. Wow. Can't tell you how happy I am. This is for Seth. This is for Ryan. Ben. All the people that have tried it with me. Living and gone. Truly a dream. Andres, of course. Leon, so many folks. What an amazing, amazing place. Just the last big mountain before Western Lowlands. Unbelievable. Dreamed about this moment. So yeah, it was super awesome to get to be there with him, and I was thinking of obviously Seth and David, who had passed away a year and a half earlier, and man, I just wish he'd lived a little longer so I could have shared that with him, because he was, every year he'd always call me like, "When are you coming in? How's it going? What's your plan?" He always wanted to know. But yeah, it was way cool, and we got to hang out there for 15 minutes, and we had a long way to go to get down, and we knew the descent route though, and it was like really not that stressful because I'd been down that terrain in the past, and we went down the first descent route of the mountain that I took with Ben in 2012. And at this point, boy, all we had to do was just walk across the Misfit Glacier one last time, never ever to return to that hellhole, and go up a 1,000-foot pass. And then for Andres, the crux, I think, of the entire trip was skiing down the icy glacier with a 50-pound pack. So it wasn't over by any means. But we got to the bottom of the of the couloir, and we, like, instead of pulling the ropes, we just drug them, but they got into a horrible knot of Basically summarize our climb to Golgotha right there. Fucking did it. Unbelievable. Jesus. We're back at the Misfit Glacier. Now we have to go up that col and then ski back to camp.
Do you guys want to guess what happened next?
Weather came in and broke your tent.
So we get back to camp, and Andres Marin, I've known the guy. He was like a MIA athlete for a while, and then he signed on with the North Face, I believe, in 2017. I've been fortunate to travel all over the world with him and shoot professionally with the North Face with him, and get to tag along on these really cool adventures. So he is a product designer for North Face, and so he had redesigned this North Face dome tent. It was called the AM Dome, the Andres Marin Dome. So we were way psyched. We were product testing it and like thinking of little corrections for it. And we had just put everything in this big dome tent. And we'd staked the living heck out of it. But it had blown so much while we were on the mountain, and we were in this like wind shadow, so we didn't get any wind, but we didn't know it, but it was blowing like hell in base camp the whole time, and it completely eroded all of our anchors on that tent. And so we get back at about midnight, we have this epic ski down, he's falling, he ends up walking down the last 500 feet of the ski, and I pull into camp before him, and I'm like, where's the tent? And I can't see anything. I'm like, it's gotta be right here, and it's just gone. And everything inside it, I had all my camera gear, all of our food, everything. Completely covered up, gone. And so we basically started digging in the hole, and we found some stuff. But all we wanted at midnight was a damn warm meal, and we spent 3 hours digging this out. And the next morning, we found the fly of the tent, like a half mile down the glacier. We looked for days. We never, ever found that tent. We lost a lot of shit. So then we had, well, this is the route. So that was the route we ended up climbing. We called it the Shaft of the Abyss on Golgotha. But then we had plenty of time to ruminate about it in camp. Tied every available pole together and made this little makeshift like circus tent thing with the ripped up fly, and basically just waited for another 10 days until we got picked up by the pilots. So if I thought the Revelations were expensive in 2008, they are way more expensive in 2022. We were hoping, and what's ironic is that all these years I've gone in, like a bunch of times I've gotten climbing grants for people or free trips. This year we didn't get any funding at all, and when we got the bill, we almost cried. It was $3,400 a person.
What?
Yeah, $3,400 a person. So I won't be going back there anytime soon, but that's good because we've kind of finally done almost all the things we wanted to do. But once we got back, Andres was...
This and then like right here.
I don't see it. Oh, that's bad, dude.
Yeah, it kind of goes like all the way around.
Why is it so small?
I feel like if it would have hit me in my kneecap, it would have.
Not one already, so.
So yeah, that was from the crux pitch where all that stuff was raining down on it. It was just a super awesome experience, and that would have been just the best season ever for me, just to get that. But I had ample time, and I've been planning another trip in the Central Alaska Range, and another one of my big objectives. And in all reality, I'm 38. I've been climbing for a long time and doing a lot of trips in the Alaska Range. I think 33 trips in the whole Alaska Range. But I've taken a lot of risks. I've had a lot of wild things happen, and a lot of friends gone. Probably over a dozen people I know who have not come back, and I just don't really know how many more of these trips I want to do, but I had one more thing I really, really wanted to do, and that was to establish a new route on Mount Hunter, which I had been planning since 2011 when we climbed the West Ridge. So initially I had wanted to climb the Moonflower, which is the North Buttress of Mount Hunter, but it didn't get the weather that year, we bailed, so we ended up going up the West Ridge. And while I was over there, with that kind of eye for looking for unclimbed routes, I looked at that thing and said, man, if only all the global warming would hurry up, that'd be a really cool face. But probably not in my lifetime. But looking over here, this buttress always intrigued me. And there is a hangar, but there's a big face on the other side that I always just kind of wondered if there was something there. And in about 2018, I did a flyby of it, and this is looking from the side, and there's that little hangar there, but it actually, seeing it, the fall line is here. So this whole wall is really actually very protected. 20 years ago, it was not the case. But I kind of identified this crescent ramp system and then this big giant rock. And I thought that if we could just find the weakness through there, there might be a new route. So in 2021, I went with August Franzen, who lives in Valdez. He's a 25-year-old, just badass. He's really super humble, fantastic ice climber. And his story is, I'm sure some of you know, is, I mean, really tragic. His girlfriend passed away in a climbing accident 2 years ago with Brian Teal. And then Brian and him were super, super close. And Brian passed away in a construction accident just a couple of months ago. So to get to climb with August, you know, in 2021 and then again in 2022 here, it was more than just a partnership of convenience for sure. So, you know, I just kind of came together because I knew his reputation. We'd never really climbed together that much, but I knew that he would be able to meet the, you know, rise to the standards of climbing a big new route, and he'd done some other routes in the Alaska Range, so he was far from a novice. But we had a lot of questions to answer before we even got to the base of the route. The first thing that guards this is the Raman ice fall here. So the West Ridge is to the left, and then the Raman ice fall is this terrible ice fall that is almost impenetrable, and I would think it was if I hadn't been down it on 2 other occasions from the other times I've climbed Mount Hunter. So I walked through this in 2013, so I knew there was a way. And in 2021, August and I went up there, and we just decided we were going to try and find a way. We'd taken some satellite photos from a couple of days before, and we had a pretty good idea of where we wanted to go. So this was actually video from 2022 that it shows kind of getting up to it. You go, how the heck do you get through there? Oops. So in 2021, walking or going through, we had skis, and right as we got to kind of this really wild part where we started being around the crevasses, I said, all right, dude, keep me tight here. And we had just taken a break, and I literally took 3 more steps with my skis and just started falling and falling and falling, and I kept falling. And it was like one of those moments where it's only a half a second, but it feels like an eternity, and I had time to think, and I just wondered eventually if I was going to pull him in. But, you know, going back to the whole brevity thing, once I came to a stop and realized I was okay, and I looked down and saw blackness, but, you know, I had Rage Against the Machine playing on my iPhone in my pocket. I'm like, I want to get out of here, but this is pretty wild. I'm okay. Better take a video.
Totally fine. But I just took a nice fall on a crevasse. Luckily it's warm and August stopped me. But yeah, it was a nice 25-footer down there.
I've never fallen in a crevasse before, so I guess maybe that's hopefully my one for Michael. But I got out and I said, are you okay? And he's like, are you okay? And I said, yeah, let's keep the rope really tight. And then we're going through the worst part of the ice fall, and we never found another crevasse. So 2021, we go up, and our plan was to climb this ice face, go up this ridge, and then wrap around the backside of this big feature here, and then climb that for 1,500, 2,000 feet, and then continue up onto the summit plateau. So we're actually not really even under that Serac. It looks like it, but amazingly, it's actually, you know, you're not really under it hardly at all. It's quite safe, and we never really felt like we were in any danger there. Maybe for 15 minutes or so we were under it, but it was pretty minor. But we started climbing, and the climbing was very technical, very challenging. And the weather, of course, had been fantastic, and then it just got bad as soon as we got on the mountain. Let's see where this is here.
Snowing like a mofo. Stoke is decreasing. We're at a point where we can still bail. But yeah, kind of a bummer. Weather is breaking down. We thought maybe it would get better. It's supposed to get better, and now it's getting worse. The disadvantage of forecasting. So we had a pretty warm night, actually. We were once.
You don't need to hear all my talking, but anyways, we bailed. So we, like with Golgotha though, we had figured out a lot, figured out maybe the crux, which is how to get there, and then, you know, what we'd climb, that's all knowledge, and then what lies ahead. We got a pretty good idea. Interestingly enough, we found a sling 2 pitches below our high point, an old sling, and at first I wondered if maybe somebody climbed it back in the day and hadn't reported it. But Steve couldn't come up with anybody, so I figured it must not be if Steve Gruen doesn't know that nobody does. And Paul Roderick said nobody climbed it, and the one guy that had climbed over there said it wasn't him. So as far as I know, it was just an old bale sling. But we ended up bailing and went back down, and of course as soon as we got back down, the weather got really nice. And we're all the way down, back through the ice fall, and that stuck with me, and I knew we were going to come back, and it was going to be August and I. And this year we decided to wand the Ramen ice faller beforehand, before climbing. We teamed up with a group of skiers from Colorado, Mike and Elliot. They're awesome guys, and we ended up wanding a path through.
Yeah, boys!
So now we have a safe path.
It's gonna go.
And on the climbing day, we could just cruise right through and not have to worry about it. We still roped up, but we didn't have to do all the exploratory, like go this way, jump over that crevasse. We just had wands and a really nice path the entire way. So we pretty quickly got kind of back on the route and pulled into some of these really cool spots that we knew and found our old anchors that we'd left. And you know, we're just kind of cruising on day one. We left from Helander base camp, so we had a pretty big first day, but we knew we were going to stop at this little hole and camp for the night. Just kind of the first couple of pitches.
Wow, look at those mountain shadows over there. You see that? On the glacier, look at the mountain shadows.
I'm going to have to kind of speed through because I'm taking too long here.
Just a perfect, beautiful morning. Looking down the Golgotha. Little Switzerland over there. Kachatna's way in the background. Fork are just booming. Nice little night on the ledge under the rock here.
We ended up having our tent door open every single night. That's how nice the weather was. I never get to sleep with my tent door open, but in the Alaska range with the tent door open. And we just started you know, kind of climbing back, trying to get to our high point.
All right, back at the start of the route, or at least the technical portion of it. I guess we've already kind of done several thousand feet of pretty bullshit wallowing. Yeah, deep snow, really deep snow. Sucked worse than Dave Matthews, but now we're up here, beautiful day, great weather forecast. Feeling psyched.
And then the climbing got, you know, just awesome. It was incredible climbing in the sunshine. It's just the antithesis of the luck I'd had for 5 years of climbing in storm or not climbing in storm, just waiting. And we pretty quickly reached our high point and we're swapping leads. And man, August was just kicking butt, just climbing so well. Give him a pitch and he'd be
August sending her up there.
Going.
Nice, dude. Get it. Good work, buddy.
Just like really, really awesome, beautiful granite climbing, super steep, always mixing aid and mixed climbing, and you know, we both showed up, like I was probably as strong as I'd ever been, which was nice because it made the hard climbing less hard, still very hard, often aiding, but we both climbed without packs, so we would jug the rope or you know, pull the packs up, so it made it even better as opposed to climbing with a 30-pound pack on lead. And got past our high point and just kept on charging.
Do you remember what day you started?
It might have been February, or Friday the 13th, May, I think. It was a bad omen, but we did what we did.
All right. Oh, sweet, sweet, sweet salvation.
Home.
Oh, 12 hours of climbing today. And we are above the crux, or what we think is the crux. And man, a lot of hard climbing. And even better yet, clear skies and the sick. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna actually sleep. It's protected up above. We're feeling psyched. It's 10 o'clock. We had some like scary little clouds come in today, but then they went away, and now it's just perfectly gorgeous. Just what you dream of. If this is your dream. Pretty freaking sweet.
Just incredible, like 1 a.m. twilight, doesn't ever get dark out there at that time of the year, and just silent.
Morning of the third day. Third day?
Day 3.
A little colder last night, but we slept well, mostly. I better with my air pad, I believe. August with his little eggshell. Just making some tea, coffee on pack 2,741 of the cheap shitty oatmeal. And it's just absolutely beautiful outside. Gorgeous. Looking down the Golgotha. Yeah, there's Paul giving us a look over. Hi, Paul.
It's comforting to know when you're way up there that you've got the master
You're climbing so he doesn't think we're lazy.
looking over you. Oh yeah, we just kept on climbing, and before we know it, we were, you know, getting pretty high, and at this point we were just charging. There was absolutely nothing to turn us around. The climbing was, it eased up a little bit, and just the exposure was incredible. And we were incredibly excited.
Hell yeah!
So fucking pumped!
Woo! Yeah, dude, what a day. We are high up on the mountain. Stay right there for a second. I want to get some more shots, but yeah, this is what we've been dreaming of.
What we came for!
So yeah, we pulled up onto the plateau over the rock there, and now we just have to do the hard work of walking. And we were back in the wind.
Just below the south summit. It's pretty gusting to 40. We're gonna try and find some kind of a protected zone, maybe in the Bergstrom there. And try and tag the central summit tomorrow, north, down the West Ridge. Gloves back on, it's cold. We're tired. Almost there.
This is from Benny Lieberman. I don't know if you're here, Benny, but he snapped a photo while they flew out with Paul and the two of us walking up the plateau there. So we're actually heading for the south summit, and we would be right there that night. I'm going to kind of speed through these because I've been going too long.
All right, 8:30 p.m. Camped under an icy Bergschrund. Feel pretty good about it. South summit right there. Most importantly, a couple hours of sunshine to dry our wet bags. Man.
The next morning, we climbed up on
All right. We are on the south summit of Hunter.
We did it.
My first time to this summit. There's the north summit. We'll be going there soon, hopefully. Oh, man. Freaking did it. I can't believe it. Not over yet, but completed a new route on Mount Hunter. Wow.
It's official.
August, it was a really poignant moment. He took out some of Callie's ashes and put them on the south summit, which was obviously super powerful. And and then after that, we spent the entire day walking to the central summit and finally topped out on the highest part of Mount Hunter, which it has 3 summits of the massif on the north summit in the afternoon. And wow, just what a feeling to be on Mount Hunter with August and just feel that awesome partnership, and couldn't imagine him doing any better. It was really cool. And then all we had to do was hike all the way down the mountain. So having been down the route numerous times, I had an idea of it would take a while. How do we go to the bathroom on the mountain? Well, so that's a good question. I have long described myself as not an alpinist, but a technical pooper. So I go up there just so I can go find really cool places to go to the bathroom. Or we just go anywhere. And sometimes we have to hang off. It's a good question. So we ended up going down the West Ridge and then to the Ramen Couloir, and it's unbelievable. We were from the summit of Mount Hunter down and off the mountain in 3 hours and 10 minutes. 0 rappels.
All right, flat ground. Now we just have to walk over there about 3/4 of a mile, grab our skis, which we debated leaving in the middle of the glacier, but we said, no. But 3 hours and 10 minutes down from the summit, down the Ramen. Oh, feels so good. So good. Only 2 more cruxes. The ice fall, and then the slog up Heartbreak Hill. Damn it. We're doing good. Yeah.
So yeah, that was indeed a long crux to get through the ice fall of the night, with the idea of the crevasse falls still on my mind, and then secondarily the 9-mile ski back to camp, which brought pain to a whole new level. But we got back at 5 a.m. and our feet were just blistered, and we ended up catching the first flight out of the range and completed our new route, got to fly right by it. And then at this point, we've been up now for like 25 hours when we flew out, and then did not go to sleep that night. And just were looking back at base camp, or at the Alaska Range from Talkeetna. And just was super special, obviously. And I've always only had one rule about the Alaska Range, is that every expedition must begin and end at the Fairview, and the trip is not over until the hangover is over, and this one lasted a while. Thanks a lot, you guys, for coming. Before you leave, I just kind of set up a little silent auction there in the back. If you guys want anything, you want to bid on anything, 100% of the money will go towards MCA huts and the snowbird hut. And yeah, appreciate it. And if there's any questions, let me know.
Yeah, Clint.
Yeah, so we bailed off that thing numerous times. We had quite a few anchors on the lower half of the mountain, and we were ready to leave whatever we had. Rock gear or snow bowlers or whatever.
We had 2 questions in the chat at some points. So the first question was, how old were you when you first started attempting or thinking about first ascents? And what time of year was the 2022 ascent?
Okay, I guess I first started, my first ascent was in the Chugach Range on Mount Eucla, and that was probably back in 2005. And so yeah, I just kind of started then, and boy, I had no idea where it would take me, but a lifelong healthy or unhealthy obsession, depending on your interpretation of it. And the dates of Mount Hunter were sometime in, I think, May 13th to 17th, I believe. Yeah. We were in there about that time when everyone was just running up the Slovak direct on Denali in like less than a day. All our buddies. Any other questions?
What's next?
I'm just trying to get through nursing school right now. So in all reality, for the first time in my life, I really don't have any climbing objectives. And if I made any of these wild experiences sound light, I realized that they're super heavy, and the crevasse falls and the avalanches and the lost friends and all that has definitely weighed on me a lot. And I don't really know what alpinism in the future means for me. I'm sure I'll go back and climb there, but maybe not necessarily with the same zeal of having my neck out for difficult objectives. So we'll see. But right now, I'm just trying to survive pathophysiology. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it.